Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to welcome you to our Spring 2022 National Technical Honor Society Induction Ceremony. If you would, please stand as our new members enter into the room with Dr. Kelly Chaney. Thank you. All right, Dr. Chaney. Again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Spring 2022 Induction Ceremony, where we are excited and glad that you've come to be a part of your family member, your friend's special day. First, I would like to welcome our leader of the campus. This is Dr. Kelly Chaney, and I want Dr. Chaney to come up and have a few words.
Good afternoon. Parents, family, friends, Technical Honor Society is a very big deal. It demonstrates your academic excellence, your leadership in the classroom and community, and most of all, commitment to a big dream. We're excited that you chose Tennessee College of Applied Technology to further your studies. And parents, family, and friends, higher education is a family affair. So thank you for bearing with our students as they push through this academic world that we live in now, this thing that we called COVID that upset the world for our students and our community, but they push through. They're doing very, very well, and they're going to be great leaders that are going to serve our community well. So students, I congratulate you today, and I want to turn the program over so we can get started. I'll turn it back to Ms. Yolanda.
We are of course recognizing the accomplishments of this group of students who have exceeded in their academic performances, and these students are ones who haven't missed over 24 hours of absences since their enrollment here at TCAT. So that's quite an accomplishment, to be a full-time parent, a full-time employee, and being able to be here, be present, and be a part of your classes. The next person that you will hear from is our special guest, and he is actually the curator and works at the Lincoln Museum at Lincoln Memorial University, of where he received his undergraduate degree. He also holds a master's degree in history preservation from the University of Tennessee. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Steve Wilson.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity, and congratulations to the students. I know this is a significant moment in your life. Back when I was younger, I was named the curator of the Abraham Lincoln Library Museum, and being younger, of course, I was kind of arrogant because young men are arrogant. And I thought, well, it's going to be mentioned in the newspaper, the daily progress or the weekly progress of Cumberland, or rather, Cleveland County. I was bound to be on the first page. It has to be, and it had to be big headlines. Well, I got the paper, and I looked at the front page, and there was no mention. Okay, fine. I went to the second page, and third page, fourth page, fifth page. By the time I got to the last page, there was reference to me being named curator of the museum. The headline was about that big. And I thought, well, this is kind of disappointing, but I was even more disappointed when I looked above it. There was a large article with banner headlines that said it's hog killing time in Greasy Holler. So somewhere along the line, I've kind of went downhill. Winston Churchill said there is rightly no history, it's only biography. And the biography he was talking about is a story of people. Now, in my career, dealing with Lincoln, dealing with the Civil War, I've learned a great deal. It's a fascinating study, this study of Lincoln called Lincolniana. It's a fascinating study of a remarkable individual. What you'll find mostly in history is it's ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. And these circumstances come in as events or happenstance or watershed marks and that sort of thing in history. When you study Lincoln, you begin to learn a number of different things that made him, first of all, one of the premier commander-in-chiefs of the military forces, and second of all, the first real true executive president. He was managing a government and an army that was huge. It was a massive undertaking to try and preserve the Union. And first and foremost, what Lincoln said is, I want to preserve the Union. So as of 1861, when the war begins, people were contacting Lincoln about freeing the slaves and ending slavery and that sort of thing. And his rebuttal was, my intention is to preserve the Union. And he said, candidly, if I could preserve the Union by freeing some slaves, I would do it. If I could preserve the Union by freeing all slaves, I would do that. If I could preserve the Union by not freeing any slaves, I would certainly do that. Now, this points out two things. Number one, slavery, of course, was a contentious issue in the United States during the period. Number two, Lincoln was a consummate politician. The skills that Lincoln brought to the presidency, the experience that he brought, began, of course, when he was born in Kentucky in 1809. He was an individual that came from a modest background. His father was a farmer and a carpenter and a road warden. And Lincoln was kind of alienated from his dad. Lincoln was not fond of physical labor, and I can appreciate that. And his father, of course, was a farmer and a road warden and a carpenter, so that was what he did. But Lincoln, for some reason or other, would not take that under consideration. He would rather read. He would rather talk. He had newspapers, books, pamphlets, anything he can get his hands on, he would read these things. But here's the important part. When he read a book, he would read it and then set it aside and then read it a second time and then set it aside, and then he would write down what he thought the book was telling him. And then he would read the book again and compare it to what he had written down. So he is very methodical in understanding and learning and trying to appreciate what was being passed on to him. Now, he continued doing this his entire life. He was an individual with less than 1 year of formal education. Now, on the frontier, that's really not saying a great deal because it was the frontier. Few people owned books. Few people could read. Few people were capable of complex tasks, lawyer, doctor, any of that sort of thing. So Lincoln was not really a stranger in a strange land. He was a part of the frontier and became part of the process of America growing on a regular basis. But there's two things I think that Lincoln possessed that I know that the graduates today possess, that you folks here who have accomplished so much possess. One is ambition. When you think about Abraham Lincoln, you think of the icon. Abraham Lincoln, who chopped down the cherry tree, invented the first light bulb, was first man on the moon, all this. Wait a minute, he didn't do that, did he? I didn't think so. But the problem is this. When you create an icon, you shield the individual. You don't know who he really was or the story behind him, the important story, his story or her story. These stories are just as important now as they were when Lincoln was the president. So this icon is brimming with ambition. You do seldom hear that. What you hear about Abraham Lincoln is he would clasp his lapel and look down his nose and think a while and say something old-timey. or that he was a kind, generous man who chopped down trees and split rail fences and that sort of thing. Well, that's all good, and I'm glad to hear that, but the truth of the matter is he was burning with ambition. Now, if we were to define ambition, for me, for you folks here, it would be that kernel of flame within your soul that refuses to be extinguished. And at times in your experiences, it will blossom. And when it does that, you have to do something. Not because you want to do something, you need to do something. You need to advance. And this is what Lincoln was. When he, I guess, became one with his ambition, he understood that he needed to be, well, better oftentimes than other people. And I mean that in a positive way. I don't mean to say he was unkind about that sort of stuff, but he really wanted to be a better person and learn more and constantly challenge himself to do things. He was a consummate politician because he learned politics. His first race for the state legislature in 1834, he lost. He learned a valuable lesson. That brings back another point, too. You might as well prepare yourself for failure. It is going to be part of your life. It's not bad. I can't tell you the number of times I have failed. I probably could, but it would take a long time. Number of times that I've failed that have helped me to advance myself, to learn things, to understand things. This is the way Lincoln was. He said he was not entirely content until he got to the nub of the problem. The nub of the problem, what he meant was that tiny core within the problem that is the real makeup of the thing. When his generals were calling constantly on to Richmond, let us go down to Richmond and take the Confederate capital and the war will be over. What Lincoln would constantly remind them is this: Lee's army and not Richmond is your goal. The important thing is Lincoln saw these issues and he understood these issues. It was like peeling an onion apart. That's how he saw these things. And he was a very capable communicator. This is important as well. This capable communicator could get his point across to diverse people. You have powerful politicians, William Seward, Edwin Stanton, who were at one time rivals for his position of president. He had to cultivate their friendship, number one, and then he had to communicate himself so they understood exactly what Lincoln was saying. Remember, this goes back to the book and him reading it and studying it, that sort of thing. This is how he worked. When Grant first came to Washington, D.C. and was on his way to take over the command of the Army of the Potomac and all Union armies, Lincoln asked him what his philosophy was, what his strategy was going to be. And Grant said, it'll be like hog killing. Those not skinning the hog will be holding a leg. What he was saying was every source, every portion of the army would move in concert. Lincoln understood that perfectly because he came from a frontier background. He knew exactly what Grant was saying. And Lincoln himself would use those sorts of descriptions when he talked to other people about what to do and how not to do it and that sort of thing. Now, I mentioned ambition. There's that burning flame within you that you have to continually feed, you can't extinguish. The other part is discipline. Lincoln would say that he would make a move slowly, and once he put his foot down, he was not likely to move it again. So in fact, what he was saying was that he considers everything. And when you describe Lincoln as being calculating, it's not in a negative sense. He calculated the results of what he was going to do. He would look at it and advise and consent from different people. And he would examine it from different positions until he was absolutely sure what the impact was going to be. One of the things that's well known about Lincoln, besides things like the Gettysburg Address for the first inaugural, is a document called the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, as superb as the Gettysburg Address is, and it's poetry, it really is poetry, the Emancipation Proclamation was, as one scholar said, roughly akin to a bill of lading. It was a legal document, but it was a powerful legal document that Lincoln considered for months before he implemented it. As a matter of fact, he talked to his cabinet in July of 1862 and said, take a look at this. This is what I'm going to issue. William Seward said, well, before you do that, you got to make sure we have a military victory, because by 1862, the Union Army was striking out on a fantastically bad level. So Lincoln said I would. In September of 1862, McClellan's Army of the Potomac fought Lee's Army of Northern Virginia to a standstill. And it wasn't a real big victory in terms of what they had managed to accomplish, but it was a victory that Lincoln could use. And by the way, that particular battle lasted about 12 hours. The casualty rate was 24,000 men, 24,000 in 12 hours. But it gave Lincoln what he needed in terms of a document or a platform from which to launch his document. So he did. He issues the Emancipation Proclamation, which says, as of January 1st, 1863, slaves in all states or portions of states then in rebellion against the United States shall be forever free. Wonderful document. That's great. The bad news is, if it's a state or a portion of a state, then in rebellion, you have no control over it. What Lincoln planned to do was the movement of the armies, the success of the Union armies would free those slaves as of January 1st, 1863. And the document itself, as dry as it is a fantastic document because it gives him 3 levels to attend to the war. Number 1 is diplomatically. This document, with the issuance on January 1st, 1863, tells the French and the English that this war is no longer just a war to reunite the Union. This is a war to end slavery. So England and France, which had been supporters of the South, suddenly lost that position. Second thing is militarily. The Army of the Potomac was a huge army. That's just one army of the Union sources, maybe between 100 and 120,000 men. It wasn't enough. There was a need for more soldiers. Upwards of 180,000 free blacks joined the Union Army. They were paid less than white soldiers, but they joined the Union Army. Another 20,000 joined the Union Navy. And in this process, the military grew. Not only grew in numbers, but it grew with a conviction that Lincoln needed to win the war. And then politically, that's the third leg of this particular stool. Politically, what Lincoln established is, for the radical Republicans, here is an effort to deal with the institution of slavery, a thing he decided against early in the war. He was smart enough, after due consideration, and this discipline of taking these pieces apart so he could understand, he was in a position to know that now the time was right. Now, there were still slaves in the border states, which were still in the Union, and there were slaves in Washington, D.C., which was a slave capital. But Lincoln chose to go as far as he could, as fast as he could, under the circumstances, which laid this foundation. So, if I were to talk about Lincoln, what I'd say is ambition, absolutely ambition. First-rate politician, burning with ambition. Second thing, the discipline that he needed, and this is an important part. Back when Lincoln and Stephen Douglas were debating, there was a debate in which Douglas went first, and he was talking about Lincoln's failures. It went down a long list. Lincoln was a failure as a storekeeper. Lincoln was a failure as a riverboat man, as a surveyor, as a postmaster. You name it, Lincoln failed, according to Douglas. Lincoln failed at all these things. So Douglas sat down, and Lincoln got up, and he said, Judge Douglas is absolutely correct. Oh, I forgot to mention that Douglas also took him to task for owning a grocery, and the grocery was where you saw liquor over the counter in the 19th century. So that was the last part that Douglas threw down, that Lincoln sold liquor over the counter. In any case, Lincoln gets up, and he responds, he replies during this debate. He said, well, Judge Douglas is correct. I was a lousy storekeeper. I was a bad postmaster. I was a terrible surveyor. Riverboat man, you name it, I did all these terrible things. And he said, and Judge Douglas was absolutely correct about me selling liquor over the counter. And then Lincoln said, but what Judge Douglas didn't tell you is, While I was on one side of the counter, he was on the other. I've given you just a basis, just a snippet of what the story of Abraham Lincoln is. And again, I've got to congratulate you folks on your awards. That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. On behalf of our students, faculty, staff here at TCAT, we'd like to just give you a couple of little mementos, a shirt,
Thank you.
and also a certificate of appreciation
Our pleasure.
for
Thank you very
being
much.
here today. Thank you. The next voice we'll hear is Miss Emily Wilson, and she's going to tell us about the purpose of the National Technical Honor Society.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. The purpose of National Technical Honor Society are to reward excellence in workforce education, to develop self-esteem, pride, and encourage students to reach for higher levels of achievement, to promote business and industry's critical workplace values: honesty, responsibility, initiative, work, teamwork, productivity, leadership, and citizenship, to help schools build and maintain effective partnerships with local businesses and industry, and to champion a strong and more positive image for workforce education in America. The colors of National Technical Honor Society are silver, white, and purple. Silver represents value and worth, white represents trust and honesty, and purple represents achievement and honor. I would now like to welcome Ms. Mila McAnally to the stage.
Hi, I'm Mila McAnally from the Dental Assisting Program. The official emblem of this organization is made up of a shield crossed by a scroll bearing the letters NTHS. Above the shield is the head of an American bald eagle with a wreath of 7 stars circling the eagle's head. The shield represents the individual member. The line running through the shield represents a straight, plumb line fundamental to building a life and career upon a good foundation. The bald eagle's head represents the United States of America and the individual's freedom of career choice. The wreath of 7 stars represents the 7 attributes of the NTHS member and the individual NTHS chapters throughout the U.S. The official insignia of the organization, which is used on all charters, memberships, certificates, documents, and stationery, is made up of the official NTHS emblem as its central figure and also an arch upon which are inscribed the 7 attributes of the membership: skill, scholarship, honesty, responsibility, service, leadership, and citizenship. The year the society was established in 1984 and the motto of the organization. The arch itself represents the student's passage from school or college into the workforce. The steps represent the preparation necessary to make this transition. I would like to welcome back Emily Wilson.
Thank you, Mila. The motto of National Technical Honor Society is "Success favors the prepared mind," and the slogan of National Technical Honor Society is "Excellence in America's Workforce and Education." And now I would like to welcome Ms. Catherine Newberry.
Hello, everyone. I am Catherine Newberry, and in preparation for our induction and recognition ceremony, we will light the candles that represent the attributes we adhere to as members of the National Technical Honor Society. In the center of the table is a lighted candle representing knowledge. Knowledge is familiarity, awareness, or understanding gained through experience or study. This candle represents the knowledge you have gained through experience and study in your technical program. The first member attribute is skill. Skill is the use of knowledge to develop great ability and expertness necessary to make a positive difference in a particular occupational field. The second attribute is honesty. Honesty is the quality of being truthful, trustworthy, and fair with everyone while at work or play. The third attribute is service. Service is giving assistance and being ready and able to provide a helpful and useful act. The fourth attribute is responsibility. Responsibility involves the ability to act without guidance or superior authority and being answerable for your actions. The fifth member attribute is scholarship. Scholarship is the distinctive mark of one who has mastered an area of learning as reflected in the quality of his or her work, especially with respect to scope, thoroughness, and care. The sixth member attribute is citizenship. Citizenship is being entitled with full civil rights and exercising the duties, rights, and privileges of the status. The seventh and final member attribute is leadership. Leadership is the responsibility of serving as a guiding force and directing the way by going first with courage and confidence. Fellow members, I hope you recognize these 7 attributes in yourself and value these qualities that make you eligible for membership in the National Technical Honor Society. I'd like to welcome back Ms. Williams to the stage.
Now it's time for the induction ceremony. And you will see a little bit of what our students have accomplished since they began training here, or in some cases, they had already accomplished some of these accolades prior to their enrollment. Now to induct and recognize the new National Technical Honor Society members, the following students embody the attributes of our organization and represent excellence in career and technical education. I'm going to ask the first row of students here, starting with Mr. Parker, and then as I call your name, you will come up. And for your guests who will be pinning you, then guests, if you would enter on the opposite side of the stage so that you can pin your students or your new member. All right? So starting, Mr. Parker Arias. Mrs. Kinsey Anderson. Ms. Isaac. Miss Abigail Armentrout. And Mr. Tony, come right on up. Nikki Ball. Hunter. Mr. Bradley Berry. Mrs. Brianna Blair. And Miss Karen. Mr. Timothy Charpenter. Ms. Megan Dalton. Come on up. Casey England. And then Miss Kristen Brazil. Beth Mary Guthinsky.